and having you on. We do appreciate it. And Dan Campbell just met with the media last time before this big game. What did he have to say?
Yeah, he had his typical Friday performance. He came to the podium just almost jumping up and down, almost wrestling the microphone. He was so excited and eager to get to practice. It's red zone day. It's going to be a spirited practice for this team. And he just emphasized the fact, this team now for really 3 years has been playing big games, playoff-like games, and they always find a way to rise to the occasion. They've now won 11 of their last 12 primetime games under Dan Campbell. He said, we love the bright lights. We love the challenge of this, the chess match of this. He thinks for some teams that haven't been in these spots before, all of the attention and media and pressure can be overwhelming. He says for us, this is kind of our normal now. So they just can't wait to get to Sunday. He called it one of those all out, come to the end of the line type of games. And that feels like the best way to describe what we're all about to witness on Sunday night.
What do you think is a special sauce with this coaching staff to get this team primed and ready to go each and every week? I mean, this has been an astounding year with all the injuries, but somehow they're able to get through it.
Creativity. I think obviously we go to the psychological edge that Campbell and others like Aaron Glenn can provide them. But I think we'd be remiss not to mention how adept they are and how nimble they are in week to week to adjust to the opponent that they're playing and to adjust to their own personnel. I thought Aaron Glenn was as real as we've ever heard him yesterday, talking about the reality for this defense now. They are not who they were. They can't do what they could earlier in the year, and it's going to come down to, their playmakers, the likes of Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and a couple others, making a few takeaways, a few big plays per game to swing games in their favor. And, of course, Ben Johnson is as creative as it gets on offense. And, I think a great testament to that is the way that this Lions offense with Ben Johnson has always had the upper hand in their matchups against Brian Flores. And against every other opponent over the past 2 seasons, the Vikings defense has held teams to about 17 points per game. Against the Lions, it's 30 points per game. And against all other quarterbacks, other than Jared Goff, they have held those quarterbacks to a passer rating of 83, one of the lowest marks in the NFL. Against Jared Goff, it's 118, 119. So they just find ways to exploit whatever weaknesses exist in the other team's armor every single week, and it's a great testament to those coordinators, and it's why, and I say it maybe begrudgingly, that those guys are destined for head coaching jobs likely next season.
And we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the show in the margins, so much so that we got into the officiating crew and the fact that this officiating crew has thrown more defensive pass interference flags than any other crew in the NFL, and the Vikings have benefited more from DPI calls than any team in the NFL. They got more yards on DPI calls than any other team in the National Football League. And we're debating, is this a thing, not a thing? And it feels like it could be. If this is a close game, those kinds of things could loom large.
Yeah, I think it might even be a capital T thing. I like it truly. This is obviously a deficient Lions secondary when you're missing your number one cornerback who would take that Justin Jefferson assignment. Now, Amik Robertson will be the first to tell you he is more than ready for that challenge. And to me, Amik and Jefferson is the most fascinating matchup on Sunday night. These guys have a rivalry that dates back to their high school days. They're from the same area of Louisiana. They matched up in 7-on-7 tournaments back in the day. They played each other in college when Jefferson was at LSU and Amik was at Louisiana Tech. And when they matched up again in October when these two teams played, Amik told me this week, Jefferson is by far the receiver who has talked the most, you-know-what, to Amik this season. Those two go at it and go back and forth. And while obviously it's a physical mismatch in Jefferson's favor, Amik Robertson has showed over the past 2 games that he has the ability and obviously the spunk to play outside and to lock horns with some of these great receivers in this game. So I think that matchup is fascinating, but maybe the matchup that decides the game defensively for the Lions is on the other side. It's Terrion versus Addison. And you have to almost accept that Jefferson's going to get his. You have to concede that. But if he's going to feast then you have to find a way to like starve Addison. And so Terrion against Addison feels to me like a matchup that might decide this game.
Yeah, it's almost like just don't get burned. We understand Justin Jefferson is going to get his yards, he's going to get his catches, but keep him in front of you. Don't let him get behind you and then turn a 15-yard gain into a 75-yard touchdown. And he's gotten massive yardage totals in his career against the Lions. But yeah, that's one way to do it. But the other way is, can they get a pass rush? And it's something that the Lions have lacked, obviously, since Hutchinson's been out. But the only way they've been able to dial it up is with the secondary, with guys like Brian Branch coming in. And now that Melifonwu is back, that he's that heat-seeking missile as well. Can they get a pass rush against Sam Darnold?
Yeah, Melifonwu was the name I was going to mention, too. We obviously saw the way that he excelled in that pass rushing role at the end of last season, and they have thrust him right back into this defense. I mean, he played almost 50, 60 snaps in his return against the Bears and a pretty similarly heavy load last week. And, the thing that I think separates Melifonwu is that he doesn't just have the speed and the instincts to get after the passer, but he has the length to go convert those pressures into sacks. And I think now with possibly Anzalone back on Sunday, but even if not, Jalen Reeves-Maybin back in that linebacker core, they can find ways to utilize Melifonwu even more as that blitzing safety. And that's got to be a way that they find a way to generate pressure on Darnold, who, by the way, has been really great against pressure for most of the past 2 months. Like he was pretty vulnerable against the pass rush, against the blitz early on, but much like Jared Goff, he has morphed into this calm, composed quarterback in the face of pressure. So it's not as simple as getting in his face. You really have to bring him down, and to me, Melifonwu is a guy who can do that. And look, doesn't this feel like a game where Zadarius Smith has to make a play? Like this game is going to be swung by 3 or 4 plays one way or the other. And even if it's something as simple as a third down pressure that forces an incompletion or an interception, Zadarius Smith was brought here for these games and these moments, and he has to make an impact on Sunday night.
All right, you mentioned it briefly. Do you think Anzalone plays?
It's such a good question. I don't even know if I can venture a guess, because Anzalone, as late as yesterday, didn't seem to have an idea himself. He's still wrestling with the decision in his own head. He's talking through it with Dan Campbell and the medical personnel, trying to figure out essentially if it's worth the risk of playing on Sunday night. Because if he gets hurt and then can't play, as he said, in, say, the Super Bowl, is he going to be able to live with himself? Like, is he going to regret that? And if the arm can heal more in the next week or two, maybe it behooves him to give it 1 more week and potentially 2 more weeks of rest. So I think it's almost up to Anzalone. He will practice again today. I think if he knows that he can't make significant strides in his recovery by resting, then he'll play Sunday. But there's a lot of different factors for him to consider.
Jake Bates became an instant meme for lying on the ground and trying to stretch himself out against San Francisco. How has that been received in the locker room since?
Yeah, it's definitely made the rounds as it has on the internet. I fully expect it to be the NBC's lead on Sunday night. I think they should come into the coverage replaying the famous Jake Bates image. But look, he's been good about it. He knows that it was inevitably going to go viral, and that was the result. Hey, by the way, guys, a couple good nuggets for you. This has been talked about as the biggest regular season game ever, and there's a lot of numbers that back that up. It's the first time ever we've seen 2 teams in the regular season play with 13 wins each. First time since '93 a season finale decides the 1 seed. It's the most combined wins in a regular season matchup ever, 28 wins. The previous high was 25, Giants-Patriots in 2007. There was also a game in 1926 between the Pottsville Maroons and the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. 2 real teams, real story. Do you know who won that game in the battle of the NFL's 2 first-place teams?
It's all about the Maroons.
It was the Yellow Jackets.
Nobody. It was a 0-0 tie. And thank God none of us were here to watch that debacle between Frankfurt and Pottsville in 1926.
Well, you don't just walk into Pottsville.
No.
Everyone knows that.
Cash the Ticket had the over in that game,
They
unfortunately.
did, yeah. Did not work out well for them.
All right, you get your pick on this game. The Lions get it done.
I think they do. And I think it comes down to the Lions have the edge on offense, as I referenced, against Flores. And I think it's because Jared Goff and Frank Ragnow might be the best center quarterback combination in the NFL at diagnosing the defense. And while most teams against this Flores defense, which has the highest blitz rate in the NFL, are overwhelmed by all of the exotic looks and chaos that they see, these guys aren't. They know how to sift through it, to decipher the defense and to get into the right checks. And it's why they've had such success against this defense dating back to last season. I think that's the case again on Sunday night. And I think, it's an old trope, but whoever has the ball wins this game. And something tells me Jared Goff and the Lions get the ball last and have a game-winning drive with, say, 2 minutes to go.
Birchie, appreciate it as always. And we'll see you on TV. What time Sunday?
At 10 o'clock on Sunday, and we'll talk to you guys next week during the bye week. How about that?
I like it.
There you go.
Take care.
All right, see you, fellas.
I'm now down the wormhole of Justin Jefferson versus Amik Robertson in high school. And he said their battles go back to high school.
I like it.
We'll get to some of that and your phone calls next here on Karsch and Anderson on 97.1.